Today is Sunday. It is my grandfather's 80th birthday. So tonight he will die. People used to wake up and wonder, will today be the end? Or lie down to sleep not knowing if they will come back out of the dark. Now we know which day will be the end of the light and which night will be the last one. The final banquet is a luxury, a triumph of planning of the society, of human life, and the quality of it. All the studies show that the best age to die is 80. It's long enough that you can have a complete life experience, but not so long that we feel useless. That's one of the worst feelings of the elderly can have. In societies before ours, they could get terrible diseases like depression because they didn't feel needed anymore. And there's a limit to what the society can do, too. We can't hold off all the indignities of aging much past 80. Matching for healthy genes can only take us so far. Things didn't used to be this fair. The old days, not everyone died at the same age, and there were all kinds of problems and uncertainty. You could die anywhere on the street, in a medical center, as my grandmother did, even on an air train. You could die alone. And no one should die alone. The hour was very early, faint blue and pale pink, as we arrived on the almost empty air train and walked along the cement pathway towards the door of my grandfather's building. I wanted to step off the path and take off my shoes and walk with my bare feet on the cool, sharp grass. But today is not the day to deviate from the plan. My parents and Bram and I are all quiet, thinking. None of us have work or leisure hours. Today is for grandfather. Tomorrow things will go back to normal again and we will move on and he will be gone. It's expected. It's fair. I remind myself of this as we climb into the elevator to go to his apartment. You can push the button, I tell Bram, trying to joke with him. Bram and I used to fight over who got to push the button when we came to visit. Bram smiles and presses the 10 for the last time. I think to myself, after today, there will be no grandfather to visit. We will have no reason to come back. Most people don't know their grandparents this well. The kind of relationship I have with my other grandparents in the farmland is much more common. We communicate via post every few months and visit every few years. Many grandchildren watch the final banquet on the port screen, too. One step removed from what's happening. I have never envied those other children. I have pitied them. Even today, I feel this way. How long do we have before the committees show up? Bram asked his father. About half an hour, my father answers. Does everyone have their gifts? We nod. Each one of us brought something to give grandfather. I'm not sure what my parents chose for him, but I know Bram went to the Abraham to get a rock from the spot near the hill if possible. Bram catches me looking at him and he opens his palm to show the rock again. It is round and brown and still a bit dirty. It looks like a little egg. And when he brought it back yesterday, he told me that he found it under a tree in the pile of soft green pine needles that looked like a nest. He's going to love it, I say to Bram. He'll love your gift too. Bram closes his fist around the rock again. The doors slide open and we step out into the hall. I made grandfather a letter for my gift. I got up early this morning and spent time cutting and pasting and copying segments on a letter-making program on the porch. Before I printed the letter, I found a poem from the decade in which he was born, included that as well. Not many people care about poetry after they finish school, but grandfather always has. He'll read all the 100 poems many times. One of the doors along the hall opens and an old woman peeks out. You're going to the banquet for Mr. Ray's? She asks, and she doesn't even wait for us to answer. It's private, isn't it? It is, my father says, stopping politely to speak with her, even though I know he is eager to see his father. He can't keep himself from glancing down the hall at grandfather's closed door. The woman grumbles a little. I wish it were public. I'd like to go in so I can get ideas. Mine's in less than 2 months. You can bet it's going to be public. She laughs a little, in short, harsh sounds, and then she asks, can you come and tell me about it afterwards? My mother comes to the rescue, as she and my father always do for each other. Perhaps, Mama says, smiling, and she takes my father's hand and turns her back on the woman. We hear a disappointed sigh and then a click behind us as the woman closes her door. The nameplate on her door says Miss Nash, and I remember that Grandpa had talked about her before. Nosy, he says. Can't she wait for her own turn to come instead of talking about it on Grandfather's Day? Bram mutters, pushing open the door on Grandfather's residence. It already feels like a different place, more harsh, a little lonely. I think that is because Grandfather's not sitting at the window anymore. Today he rests in the bed in the living room with his body shot down. Right on time. Could you move me over to the window? Grandfather asks, after saying hello to us all. Certainly. My father reaches for the edge of the bed and pulls it smoothly towards the early morning light. Remember, you did this for me when I had all those involutions as a child. Grandfather smiles. That was a different house. And a bit different view, my father agrees. All I could see from the window was the neighbor's yard and the air train track if I had looked high enough. But beyond that there was sky, Grandfather said softly. You can almost always see sky. And what beyond that, I wonder? And after this, Bram and I exchanged glances. Grandfather must be wandering a little today. which is to be expected. On the day the elderly turn 80, the decline always accelerates. Not everyone dies at exactly the same time, but it is always before midnight. I invite my friends to come immediately after the committee visits, Grandfather says. And then after they leave, I'd like to spend some one-on-one time with each of you, starting with Aberon. My father nods, of course. The committee does not take long. They arrive, 3 men, 3 women, in their long white lab coats. They bring things with them, too. The banquet clothes that Grandfather will wear, the equipment for tissue preservation, the microcard with the history of his life, so he can watch it on the porch. With the exception of maybe the microcard, I think Grandfather will like our gifts better. After a moment, Grandfather reappears wearing his banquet clothes that are basically plain clothes, simple pants and a shirt and socks, but they are made of fine quality material, and he has been able to select the color. I feel something catch in my throat when I see that the color he has chosen for his clothing is light green. We are so much alike. I wonder if he realized when I was born that the day of our banquet would be so close together, since our birthdays are only a few days apart. We all sit politely, Grandfather in his bed, and the rest of us in chairs. And while the committee completes their part of the celebration, Mr. Reyes, we present to you your microcard with images and records from your life. They say, it has been compiled by one of our best historians in your honor. Thank you, Grandfather says, reaching out a hand. The box containing the microcard is like the silver one I received when we are matched, except the color is gold. But the microcard inside has pictures of Grandfather as a small boy, a teenager, a man. He hasn't seen some of these images in years, and I imagine that he is excited to view them today. The microcard also includes a summary of his life in words, read by one of the historians. Grandfather turned the golden box over in his hands, as I did with the silver box not long ago as I was at the MASH banquet. His life cupped in his palms, as mine was.